there is a particular kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. You can feel it at a crowded table with people who love you in the middle of a conversation you are technically part of. Everyone is laughing. You laugh too, half a second late. And somewhere behind your eyes a quiet voice says, "None of them can actually reach me." You are not sad exactly. You are not even unhappy. You are just suddenly aware of a distance you cannot close, sitting right there in the warm noise of other people. Most advice will tell you this is a problem to fix. Open up more. Be vulnerable. Join a group. Put yourself out there. And almost none of it works. Because almost none of it understands what this feeling actually is. Nearly 2 centuries ago, a deeply unpleasant, deeply honest German philosopher explained it with a single image about animals freezing in the snow. His name was Arthur Schopenhauer, and he was not trying to comfort you, he was trying to tell you the truth. And the truth is stranger and oddly kinder than the advice. So before you decide there is something wrong with you, sit with this for a few minutes. Because the reason you feel alone even around people is not a flaw in you. It is built into the very thing that makes closeness possible. And once you see the mechanism, you stop fighting it and you start working with it. Picture a group of porcupines on a brutal winter night. The cold is killing them, so they move closer together for warmth. But the moment they press in, their quills drive into each other and the pain forces them apart. Now they are cold again, so they shuffle back together, and again the spines bite, and again they scatter. Close, hurt, apart, freeze. Close, hurt, apart, freeze. They keep oscillating between two miseries until at last they discover a certain moderate distance, a careful spacing, at which they can just bear the cold and just bear each other. Not warm, not stabbed, survivable. That is the hedgehog's dilemma, and Schopenhauer wrote it as a parable about us. The cold is our own inner emptiness, the part of us that cannot stand to be alone. The quills are everything in us that wounds another person when we get too close. Our needs, our moods, our sharp edges, our hunger to be understood, which is so heavy that it presses on whoever we lean against. We move toward people to escape the cold, and we injure them, and they injure us, and we pull back. And we spend years swinging between those two pains, wondering why we can neither be alone nor be together. But here is the line almost everyone misses. Schopenhauer does not end a parable with the porcupines suffering. He ends it with what they invent to survive. That moderate distance they finally settle on, he says, has a name in human life. He calls it politeness and good manners. Read that again because it quietly rearranges everything. The reason ordinary social life feels a little cold, a little empty, a little like everyone is performing is not that people are fake. It is that manners are the spacing. Politeness is the exact distance at which two creatures full of quills can stand near each other without drawing blood. Small talk is not failed connection. Small talk is the treaty. It is the sound of two porcupines agreeing not to stab. This is why the most painful loneliness arrives in company, not in solitude. When you are genuinely alone, you expect the cold, But in a room full of people, you can feel the warmth. You can see it. It is right there, and you are still being held at the spacing. You are close enough to be reminded of what you are missing, and far enough that you cannot have it. The crowd does not cause the loneliness. The crowd reveals it. It puts the missing thing 6 inches from your hand and lets you understand in your body that the 6 inches are made of spines. Now, you might think the obvious solution is to find the courage to close the gap, to find the one person, the right person with whom there are no quills. And here, Schopenhauer becomes genuinely uncomfortable because he does not believe that person exists. To understand why, you have to understand the engine he believed was driving all of it. He thought that underneath everything, beneath every thought and feeling, there is a blind, restless force he called the will. The will is wanting itself. It is the pure, ceaseless urge to keep going, keep striving, keep reaching for the next thing, with no final destination and no rest. You are not separate from it. You are it, wearing a face, and the will has a cruel structure. Every desire is born from a lack, from a feeling of something missing. When you finally get the thing, the lack vanishes for a moment and you feel relief. But the relief is just the absence of a pain, and it never lasts. Within minutes, the will is restless again, reaching for the next thing. Schopenhauer said, "Human life therefore swings like a pendulum, back and forth between pain and boredom. Pain when we lack what we want, boredom when we get it, and the wanting has nowhere to go." Hold on to that word, boredom, because it explains something most people never connect. Why is solitude so unbearable for so many? We assume it is because they miss other people. Schopenhauer says no. It is because alone the distractions fall away and they are left facing the will directly, the restlessness with nothing to point it at, the wanting with no object. Being alone does not create that emptiness. It removes the noise that was covering it, which means most people do not seek company to find others at all. They seek company to escape themselves. They reach for the crowd the way you reach for your phone, in a silent room, not out of love, but out of a horror of being left alone with the engine. And now you can see the trap close. If that is true, then a crowd was never going to cure your loneliness because you brought the engine with you. You can be surrounded, adored, never alone for a single hour, and the restlessness is still in there, still wanting, still finding the present moment not quite enough. The people around you are not failing to fill the void. The void was never the kind of thing other people could fill. It is the shape of the will itself, and it travels with you into every room. This is also why pinning your loneliness on finding the right person quietly destroys your relationships. The moment you make another human being the thing that is supposed to complete you, you have handed a person the job of a god. You have made them an object of your will, a means to the end of your own peace. And no one can carry that. They feel it as pressure, as neediness, as a weight they did not agree to hold. The quills you press into them are not cruelty. They are the sharpened edge of your own unmet hunger. The harder you push to close the distance, the more it bleeds. For both of you. Schopenhauer goes even further, and this part stings. He says that romantic love, the grand, overwhelming kind, is mostly a trick. Not a trick played by a person, but by the species. He called it the genius of the species. That feeling that this one human is your destiny, your other half, the answer to everything, is, in his cold view, the will to live manufacturing an illusion intense enough to make two people pair up and create a third. It is biology wearing the mask of eternity, and because its real purpose is finished once it has done its work, it is built to fade. That is a bleak thing to hear, but notice what it removes. If the dissolving of that perfect early closeness is not your failure, not a sign you chose wrong, but the natural cooling of a fire that was never meant to burn forever, then a great deal of your self-blame was misplaced. You were not bad at love. You were inside a machine that was always going to return you to the spacing. So if closeness wounds, and crowds reveal the cold, and the perfect person is an illusion, and the void travels with you, then what on earth are you supposed to do? Here, the lazy answer, the one all over the internet, is to declare that you are simply too deep, too intelligent, too awake for other people, and that your loneliness is the proof of your superiority. So go be magnificently alone above the herd. Schopenhauer is often dragged out to bless that message, but it is a flattering lie, and it is the opposite of what he actually offers. Telling yourself you are too good for connection is just the porcupine pretending it never wanted warmth. It is pride bandaging a wound. It will keep you frozen and call it a crown. What he offers instead is harder and quieter, and it comes in three parts. The first is the moderate distance itself, chosen on purpose. The porcupines were not failures for settling at a careful spacing. That spacing was their wisdom. The mistake is not that intimacy has limits. The mistake is swinging blindly between smothering and freezing, letting the pain decide for you each time. Maturity is learning your own correct distance from each person in your life and holding it deliberately. Some people you can stand very near, most you cannot, and that is not a tragedy, it is a fit. He even tells us that the person with a great deal of inner warmth will choose to keep further from the huddle, precisely so as to neither give nor receive the stabbing. But he is honest about the cost. That person stays a little colder. There is no spacing that gives you full warmth, and no quills. There never was. You are not choosing between loneliness and connection. You are choosing consciously how much of each you can carry. The second part is the only real bridge Schopenhauer believed actually crosses the gap between two people. It is not romance, and it is not even friendship. It is compassion. He thought that in the moment, you genuinely feel another person's suffering as if it were your own. Something metaphysical happens. The wall between you and them, the conviction that you are a separate, sealed-off self, briefly thins, and you glimpse that underneath, you and they are the same single will looking out through two faces. He called the ordinary illusion of separateness the veil. And compassion is the one experience that tears it. Notice what this means for loneliness. The cure was never to get closer to another person across the distance. The cure is the recognition that the self the quills were defending was never as separate as it felt. You are not a lonely point in a crowd of other lonely points. You are the one thing momentarily forgetting itself into many. The third part is the strangest and the most immediately useful. Schopenhauer believed there are moments when the will goes quiet on its own, when the endless wanting simply stops, and in those moments loneliness becomes impossible. They happen in front of beauty, when you are lost in a piece of music, standing under a vast sky, absorbed completely in a painting or a landscape or a poem. The striving self dissolves. You stop wanting, you stop lacking. You become, in his words, a pure, will-less witness, just awareness with no separate hungry I left over to feel alone. He ranked music above every other art because he thought music was not a picture of the world but a direct copy of the will itself, the very thing inside you, handed back to you in a form you can finally bear. That is why a lonely person can be saved for the length of a song by a song. It is not sentiment. For those few minutes, there is no lonely individual present in you at all. There is just the music and the listening, and no gap between them. Schopenhauer lived all of this, and it is worth knowing how, because it is both the proof and the warning. He spent most of his life alone in Frankfurt, dining by himself, walking the same route each day with a series of poodles he named after the world's soul. He was prickly, difficult, and almost entirely ignored for decades. His great work sold so poorly the copies were pulped. And then, in the last years of his life, the world finally turned to him, and he became famous, and admirers came at last. Here is the honest reading of that life. His solitude was not a failure. It produced one of the deepest accounts of the human heart ever written, precisely because he kept the distance that let him see clearly. But his quills, left unmanaged his whole life, also cost him warmth he could have carried, connection that was probably within reach if he had chosen his spacing a little less harshly. He is both halves of his own parable. The distance saved his work. The coldness was real. So this is what he actually leaves you with. And it is not the thing the internet sells. He does not tell you to go be alone, because you are better than everyone. He tells you that the distance is not your enemy and not your punishment. It is the human condition, the same for the laughing person across the table who feels it too and hides it better. The loneliness you feel in company is not evidence that you are broken or that they are shallow. It is the cold air between two creatures who both have quills, which is to say, between any two people who have ever lived. Your task was never to eliminate the distance. It was to stop letting the pain throw you back and forth across it. Choose your spacing on purpose. Let small talk be the gentle treaty it is, instead of resenting it for not being more. Reach for real closeness only with the few who can bear your quills and whose quills you can bear, and let that be enough, because it is rare and it is the most you get. And on the nights when even that is not there, remember the other two doors that do not require another person at all. The compassion that quietly dissolves the wall, and the music, the sky, the beauty that, for a little while, makes the wanting stop. You will still feel it sometimes, that ache in the warm noise of other people. But now you will know what it is. Not a wall closing in on you, just the cold air at the edge of the fire, where every honest person has always had to stand. The porcupines never stopped being porcupines. They simply learned the distance at which they could keep each other alive. And so slowly can you.